Hi everyone, Jamie Humphries here for Six String Alliance, and today we are taking a look at the brand new Amped 2 from Blackstar. So Amped 2 follows on from Amped 1, and if any of you have seen my video, I don't, give awards out for my favourite piece of equipment, but I would pretty much safely say that Amped 1 was my favourite piece of equipment that I looked at last year. I've been using Amped 1 live. Now, for those of you that have seen other videos on my channel, yes, I have a massive live setup. It's my train set. I have my rack that I take out on tour. I'm taking that out on tour with me next week, but that is a touring rig. And when I'm just out and about gigging, I like to take something lightweight. Basically, I don't like to carry my gear. Sounds a bit snobby, but when I'm doing a tour, I have a lovely crew that handles that, and that's a touring setup. But when I'm gigging around, I'm either on the train or in the car, so I like to take a small system. And I've been using preamp pedals for a while, but none of them are powered, so I'm always reliant on the sound man and in-ear monitors. And also the band that I play with, although they like the sound of it, they were like, nah, it kind of lacks a little bit of something on stage. So when we were playing just before Christmas, I used amp 1 and they loved it. I used a little Mesa Boogie 1x12 and I was just using a Moore red truck running it in 4 cable. And yeah, it was fantastic. Now, the thing is, I've known about amp 2 for quite a while and I was really praying that it would turn up in time for my Christmas gigs, because it really sort of answered my prayers for an all-in-one solution. So what exactly is amp 2? Amp 2 is a 100-watt amplifier in a pedal, but Blackstar have included the kind of main effects that guitar players have on their board. So in other words, a variety of different drives, different modulations, different delays, and different reverb. So it really is an all-in-one solution. It is a complete rig. Now, it has a variety of different applications. Like I said, you could just put that on your board, come from the speaker out and go directly into a speaker cabinet, which is the way that I've been using it in pre-production rehearsals for my upcoming tour. I didn't have to run any other pedals. That's a lie, actually. I ran one other pedal with it, which was a Digitech drop pedal to save me taking a second guitar for E-flat tuning. But other than that, everything that I did in rehearsals was within amp 2, and I was running straight into a cabinet, a rental cabinet in the studio, which was a really nice vintage Fender 2x12, and it sounded absolutely fantastic. So amp 2, like I said, is an all-in-one solution. It's a 100-watt pedal-based amplifier. You can put that on your pedal board, come straight out into a cabinet. We can also utilize the 3 cab rig presets that are built in. You can see I've got my Mac set up there. We're going to be talking about utilizing their Blackstar's Architect software for setting up your amp 2. Don't worry, you don't need to be plugging it into the computer. I've just got it there so you can see the software. So you can also come direct out the XLR out and go straight to the PA, so you can be monitoring your guitar sound on stage through a cab, but sending a nice DI'd signal to the sound man with a multitude of different cabinet and microphone options, which you can edit within the Architect software using CabRig. We also have a headphone out, so you can use it for silent practice, and you can also use that headphone out as a line out. Now, the effects are not stereo, but the cab rig ambience is stereo. So today I'm using a Y cable from the line output, if you like, the headphone out or line output, and then that's splitting off into my audio interface. I wanted to utilize the stereo ambience because it just sounds so nice. As well as that, you can also use the output and run straight into an amplifier. Maybe you want to incorporate amp 2 into your current amp setup. So when you run from the output, you bypass the power amp stage, and it's just basically using the preamp and the effects. Now, I probably wouldn't use it that way, running it directly into the front of an amplifier. You've got a preamp on amp 2, and then you've got your preamp and your amp. So you could, if you don't have a speaker cab, but you want to use amp 2, you could come from that output and go straight into the effects return and utilize the power stage and the speaker of your pre-existing amplifier. As well as that, we have a USB. Now, the USB has a multitude of different functions that we will talk about, but you can also use it for direct recording, and amp 2 will also double up as an audio interface. So as you can see, it really is the complete rig. You can run it with a speaker cab. You can run it with a speaker cab and DI. You can run it just with the DI. You can practice with it. You can record with it. You can run it into your amp, and it has a complete rig of effects. All of the effects, really the most common effects the guitar players like to use, already built in. Now let's take a look at the layout of amp 2. So we have the drive section first of all. Okay, this is where your guitar first comes in. This is switchable. We have a choice of 3 different drives. We have a clean boost, we have an overdrive, and we have a fuzz as well. We have the amount of drive or your gain, we have a tone, and we have a volume. I should point out that the tap switch also doubles up as like a select. If you hold that down, it will enable you to change different parameters within the effect. So a little bit of deep diving. You can do that within the Architect software, but if you haven't got it connected to your computer and you want a gig and you want to make some slight adjustments, then you just hold down that switch there, and that enables you to access these secondary features. So that's the drive section. Then we're into the preamp section, and we have three very distinct preamps. We have USA, which is essentially a Fender Twin. We have UK, which is like a Vox, and then we have Classic. Now, I guess you could kind of call that like a JCM, but really it's the sort of Blackstar crunch. There's plenty of gain there. One of the comments that I had with Amped 1 was, oh, it doesn't have enough gain. You've got to run a pedal with it. That is not the case. There's an absolute of truckload of gain within the preamp. And obviously if you utilize that with the drive section, you know, you've got gain for days. So we have the gain control, we have a bass, middle and treble control. The treble control, when you hold down the tap shift, you can also adjust the presence, and then we have the master volume. The master volume is very dynamic in terms of running it in conjunction with the response section. And again, we'll talk about that in more detail as we get into the demo. Now onto the power stage, let's look at the responses. I should mention that there is some modeling going on in this unit. There is an analog front end, so it has that kind of feel about it. It's a very organic feeling, but we have modeling with these, the three voices, and also for the responses. This utilizes modeling as well. So we have different power amp responses. We have EL84s, so it's very Vox-like. We have EL34s, very Marshall-like, very British classic. And then we have the 6L6, which is very American sounding. So if you're using that in conjunction with the USA voicing, it very much sounds like a Fender Twin. But then if you go onto the classic voicing, you will get those very kind of scooped, tight sounding American driven tones. Up here, we have the power selection. You can select either 1 watt, 20 watts, or 100 watts. Now, this has two very definite sort of uses. If you're playing at home, you're going to want it on 1 watt. Maybe in a rehearsal, I was running it at 20 watts in a rehearsal with the volume around about 10 o'clock. That was with a drummer and a bass player and another guitarist, keyboard player. So it really did power the rehearsal well. And then we have 100 watts, and I was running Amped 1 at 100 watts on gigs. There was plenty of headroom and plenty of volume on stage. But also, if you use the power stage in conjunction with the responses, Amp 2 really starts to react like a real valve amp. You know, if I run it on 100 watt and turn the master volume up, there's going to be lots of headroom, so it'll be a very clean sound. But if I drop it down onto 1 watt and start to push up the master volume, then you get that compression and that breakup that you associate with driving the master volume on a valve amp. And the more you push it, the more it starts to respond and feel as if you are running into a real valve amp. It's a really dynamic and musical piece of equipment. So moving on, we have the modulation section. This is our first time-based effect. We have 4 types of modulation. We have chorus, we have flanger, we have phaser, and we have a tremolo. You've got the time, you've got the depth, and you've got the level as well. Now, you can actually change the position of this row of effects. So the drive is fixed. That's always before the preamp, but you can change whether you have your modulation effects pre or post, and you set that up within the Architect software. Now, I like my flanger and my phaser and my tremolo front end, but I always like to put my chorus after the preamp, which is what I did on the demo track. Any of the chorus sounds that you heard on some of the rhythm guitars and that EBO part as well, which had quite a lot of chorus on, that was in the, I had it set to post. Now, as well as that, we have some secondary functionality here. If I turn the time control, you can see you've got the time in milliseconds, but then if I hold down the shift, it will actually start showing it in note values, which is really nice. Also, we have like a freeze function. So if you hold your foot on the modulation switch and keep it pressed down, it will it kind of gives you the maximum depth, so it really exaggerates that effect. Next up, we have delay. We have three types of delay. We have linear, which is a really beautiful, clean sounding digital delay. We have an analog delay, and we also have shimmer, which is like a very sort of ambient, ethereal effect. And there's a bit of pitch going on in that as well. So we have time, feedback, and level. Once again, if I experiment with the time, you can see that in milliseconds, it says there. But if I hold down the shift, then it goes into note values as well. So whether you want it to be like a, if you're doing the edge or something, you're going to want a dotted eighth note rhythm. Once again, we have the freeze. Well, it's there. Sorry. We have the freeze function for the delay as well. So if you hold it down, it will give you a much more exaggerated effect. Now, one other thing as well with the delay, we can also change the position of the delay within the signal chain. We can have that also pre or post. I always prefer to have the delays post the preamp. Finally, we have our reverb. And as I mentioned, we do have ambience within Cabrig that you can edit in the Architect software. And there's lots of really beautiful sounding ambient effects in there. Ultra wide, you can adjust the level, and that is stereo. That's the ambience that you're hearing in this demo. We have three types of reverb, though, that you can kick in, much like a reverb on an amplifier. You have a room, you have a spring and a plate, and we have the time and the level. Once again, if you hold down the reverb control, it will accentuate that effect. Finally, on the front panel, we have our tap tempo. That also acts as the shift control, which we've spoken about. And also we have this lovely little display. Look at that. So when you're turning different controls, it tells you what you're turning and how many increments you are applying or taking away from your sound. And also depending on what voice or response, even if I go down here, it will tell me I'm on modulation. Where's the switch gone for the modulation? Here it is. If I push that, you can see it's changing through different, telling me which modulation. I really like this as well. The chorus and the flanger is shared. So if I turn the depth control, you see it says chorus, but as I get up, boom, there we go, there's flanger. So that's really nice. I've got another unit that the chorus and flanger are shared on the on one control, and it's really hard to actually know when you're from the chorus into the flanger because they sound quite similar on this unit. It's really annoying. So I really like that that display screen. That's really cool. Also, if you hold these two buttons down together, you can access the tuner as well. Now onto the rear panel. First of all, the power outlet. You might think, why are you talking about the power outlet? Now, this is really cool because this will accept power all over the world. So if you're living in Europe and you go to America, somewhere where there's weird power, well, I shouldn't say weird power because I have American viewers, but if you're going between, 220, 240, 120, you don't need step up or step down transformers. You just plug it in. It will accept power all around the world. So for guitar players that are traveling, you've got your entire rig and you can take it absolutely anywhere with you. Another really cool thing is that we have two outlets for powering pedals. Think about how much pedal power supplies cost. Well, you can power up to 500 milliamps. So if you're running a couple of effects pedals, maybe like myself, I was running the drop pedal. That was quite heavy duty, actually. I think it was about 300. But you might want to run a graphic EQ and put it in the effects loop and use that as a solo boost. So, you don't have to have a secondary power supply. You can just run your little connectors out of here and power your pedals. We have two outputs for running your speakers. We have 16 ohm and 8 ohm, so you can run directly into a speaker cabinet. I've been using it with a little Mesa Boogie 1x12, but I've also used Amp 2 with a 2x12 Boogie. Sounds fantastic. Here we have the MIDI in and MIDI through. Now, these are little mini MIDI jacks. You get a couple of these supplied. You have the little jack socket and then the MIDI plug on the end. They come with Amp 2. This really opens up another world with Amp 2. I've seen a few people sort of making comments online saying, well, you can't change the voices, you've got to flick the switches and all this stuff. Like I said, I used this in 2 days of rehearsals, and I just wanted one amplifier and just to kick the different effects in and out. So I treated it as if I had an amp and a pedal board. It worked great. But I guess we're pretty spoiled with some of the equipment that we have available to us now, and you want to be able to switch the different voices and hit one switch and have everything change. So like if you're like me and you have one of these, I have this little air step board. I'll put that there in front of the camera, move the MIDI cable. This is a relatively inexpensive board. This is a really good board. It works with Bluetooth, so you can control things like an iPad or your computer and other devices that support Bluetooth, but also you can just run a MIDI cable out of it as well. Now, Blackstar do make their own little controller. I don't have one of those. Would have been nice to have had one. That's a big hint to Blackstar to send me one, please. But that works fantastic. So, you know, a MIDI board is a MIDI board. And I just use an amp. I select the desired control change number. There's a list of all the different functions and the control change number and the value. And you just put that in to the whatever surface you use to program your MIDI board. Bang, it's done. It took me minutes. Things like gain and volume would be nice if you could have an expression pedal out and then control those with an expression pedal. You can program it with the values, but it's a little bit hit and miss. But that's nothing to do with the unit. That's how MIDI works. Now, I have 3 little things about the unit that I wish they did. Two of them could potentially be updates. One of them can't. One of them is I would have loved to have seen an expression pedal input on the unit so that you could control the parameters of certain effects like volume or gain. That would have been great. But one of the things is that the cab rig, you have 3 cab rig slot presets here. There's a multitude of combinations within the software, but you can store 3 of them on AMP2. So you could have like an open back. I've got an open back British cab. I've got an open back American. Those are 2x12s with Vox, Fender. And then I've got a 4x12, and you can have different mics, different mic placement. Really, really detailed. But you can store 3 of those and you switch them with a little switch in the cab rig area. But those are not switchable by MIDI. And hopefully at some point that will be addressed. My other slight little niggle, whilst I'm talking about that, and just get that out of the way, is that the time-based effects such as modulation and the delay and the reverb are not stereo. I think that would have been great, especially when you're utilizing the cab rig XLR, the TRS output, especially the way that I'm running it, or when you're playing with headphones. That would have been really nice. But I also see where Blackstar are coming from with this. They're treating it as if it was an amp with pedals. You know, most of us have like just an amp and a mono rig. So that's the idea behind it. It certainly doesn't take away from the quality of the sound, but I don't know whether those could be updated at some point with a firmware update. Next up, we have cab rig section. We have an XLR out, which is mono, which will output your cab rig selection. You have a little control here. If I switch that cab rig, there's cab rig 1. So I've got a British 1x12, then I've got a 4x12, and then I've got a USA 2x12. There's multiple options within cab rig, different types of cabinets, different microphones, microphone position, there's EQ, different ambience. It's a really comprehensive piece of software, and you can save 3 instances of that are switchable. Like I said, I'd love to see that MIDI switchable. We have this TRS output, which is for headphones, which you can also run as I am a Y cable so that I am getting the stereo ambience. Just for recording, I think that's kind of nice. Now, we also have a cab rig level here, which enables you to set the level coming out of cab rig and balance that between your master level, what's going out of your speaker cabinet, and how much you also want to drive the response as well. So you can, kind of offset the two so that once you crank it up, you are not, going to be clipping the mixing desk or your audio interface. So you've got the control there. So the responses are being outputted through cab rig. but the power stage does not affect cab rig. Now that's kind of nice when you're on stage, you know, for getting different levels depending on what environment you are playing in. We have an effects send and return. So if you want to run some other effects, other effect unit, like I said, I can't really think of anything else. Maybe a harmonizer or some kind of bizarre effect, maybe like the drop pedal or a graphic EQ as a solo boost. We have another output here, which you can output to the front or the return of an amplifier. That bypasses the power stage and the responses. So you can almost use it like a multi-effects unit straight into your amp. And then we have the guitar input. Now, I've saved the USB till last. The USB is for connecting to your computer, and it has a couple of different applications. As you can see, I've got the Architect software here. I've got the amp up on screen. If I just lean over and click on the speaker icon, that's changing now to cab rig, where I can select my different speakers. I've got the EQ, there's EQ presets. I can change my microphone. I can change the ambience. I've got the output level. And then also there's other functionality in terms of, you know, how the effects are positioned. Also, I should mention that the effects loop can be either series or parallel. So all of that stuff can be controlled within the Architect software, and cab rig settings, like I said, you can store them locally and you can save 3 of them to the unit itself. But also the USB enables you to utilize AMP2 for recording. So you have 4 channels of USB recording. So if you plug this into your DAW, it will show up as an audio interface. I think 1 and 2 are left and right outputs, including cab rig. 3 is just the kind of preamp and the effects side of things. So you're not using the responses or cab rig. So that's in case you want to use your own third-party IRs. And then 4 is a clean DI for reamping. Now, if that isn't enough, as I said, AMP2 will also work as an audio interface, and you can monitor your playback through it. So you can have it set up at home for recording, or if you're on the road and you're a touring, traveling musician, and you've got some work to do, then you don't have to take an audio interface with you. You can just use AMP2. So now let's have a listen to some tones. Obviously, you can really deep dive with this. There's quite a lot that you can do mixing and matching, but I'm going to kind of go with the sort of obvious choices. Right now, I'm selected on Cab Rig 3, which is a 2x12 American style cabinet with a, I think that's got a ribbon microphone. I think I can see that. Can I see that? Oh yeah, look, you can see that changing there. Isn't that pretty? So yeah, we're on the American style 2x12 with a ribbon mic, and I'm on the American voicing, and I'm on 6L6s. So nice clean tone. Push up the power stage. This is where you start to get that sort of bloom. It becomes very dynamic. Let's have a listen to the EQ. Mid-range, if I push that, actually, that's... You can hear the power amp or emulation starting to drive a little bit. Mid-range, we can scoop that out. And then we've got the treble control. So a really responsive EQ. Like I said, if I hold down the shift and turn the treble, you can see I've got the presence control there as well. So that's gone very, very bright. Let's turn that down a little bit. Let's go back down to around 4. Okay, so nice Fender style tone, a nice clean tone. And like I said, if you start to push the EQ and start to push the master volume, then it will start to saturate the power stage. Okay, now let's go on to our British sounding amp, EL84, and then put that onto the UK voicing, and then I'm going to change cab rig, and I'm on my 2x12 cab. Like I said, you do not have to have your computer plugged in. I'm just showing you the software. So this is going to be... push up the mid-range. I'm going to drop the gain a bit. Yeah, you get that feeling of the power stage. It's not flat sounding. If I it's very, very subtle, but you start to hear the compression and hear the breakup of the power amp stage. Let me back down that mid-range a little bit. Go on to a humbucker. You can hear it compressing. So that's our UK voicing. Like I said, I'm trying to do this a bit quick because there's more to get through. Let's go on to EL34s now, and on to our British voicing. Our crunch voicing, excuse me. And now we're going to go on to a 4x12. Let's have a listen to that. Sounds fantastic. Plenty of gain there, and we're not even utilising the front end drive. Something else that's quite interesting. Let's go on to 6L6s with that, and if we pull out a little bit of the mid, you can hear it's got that distinct sound of 6L6 where it's got exaggerated low end and top end, but the mid range is pulled out. So again, there's so much more you can do than what I'm doing here, but you can really hear the differences between the power stage and the different voice selections. Okay, so now let's take a quick look at the effects, just to give you an idea of what you can achieve with the onboard effects. We're going to start off with the drive. I've gone on to EL84s, the British 2x12 and the UK voicing. Now, first of all, I'm on the boost, so let's kick that in. That's nice. Turn that off. Turn it on. So you've got a nice general EQ scoop there, or sweep, should I say, with the tone control. Onto the overdrive. Let's go on to the American, the USA voicing, and let's turn that off. Let's have a listen to our USA voicing. Go on to the open back USA cab. Now let's engage the fuzz. I found that I used the fuzz on a couple of things. In the chorus section of the intro track, it was like little melody, and I wanted to see if you could get like that kind of smooth Eric Johnson-y sort of Gilmore fuzz tone out of it. And then on the middle section was that crazy open string riff. That was using the fuzz on the classic voicing. So depending on what what preamp voice you're using, it really changes the tone. So let's have a listen. Fuzz. Sounds like fuzz to me. Not a great fan of fuzz, but it's doing a fuzz thing. Let's go on to the UK cab and the UK voicing. Let's have a listen to that. And on EL84. Onto the EL34 and onto, where's the classic voicing? Let's turn down some of the gain, and I'm going to go on a 4x12 so you can maybe get some of your Hendrixy sort of Eric Clapton. Yeah, it's doing a fuzz thing. It sounds like a fuzz to me. Let's have a listen. There's my straight ahead sort of crunch tone. Let's go on to the clean boost whilst we're on that. Oh, that's nice. Let's have a listen to the overdrive now. Let's go on to 6L6 and have a listen to that. Now, I've only got the gain there. Obviously, we're getting a bit more noise. Yeah, so as you can hear, you can get plenty of gain, which obviously was one of the points that people raised regarding Amped 1. Like I said, that's more of a pedal platform. This is all in one. Now let's have a listen to the modulation effects. I'm on the British voicing. Let's add some chorus. Have to be careful I don't go too far and turn it into flanger, but that's the depth, the speed or the rate, and then the level. So at the moment I've got the chorus set to pre, so this is before the preamp. But I then can also select that to be post. So this is going after the preamp. See, I prefer that. You're putting chorus onto the sound of the preamp, not the sound of the guitar before it hits the preamp. So moving on from chorus. There's your flanger. Next up we have tremolo. And then finally, we have phaser. Let's just drop the controls a bit. So some really, usable effects there, modulation effects with the option of adding them pre or post. Like I said, I had my tremolo, my phaser and my flanger before the preamp, but I put my chorus after. Again, I'm only doing a little bit of twiddling here just to show you what this unit can do. You can really deep dive this and get some fantastic tones. Okay, so now I've gone on to the classic voicing with the 6L6 and 4x12. A little bit more of a high gain sound. I'm also using a bit of boost. Let's now turn on the delay. We're using the linear delay to start with. Really nice sounding delay that. It does exactly what you expect it to do. Again, you can change the position of that. You can put that before the preamp. I'm not too into that sound. I like the kind of smoothness of having the delay after. What we got next, we've got our analog delay. There we go, the analog delay. So it's got a little bit more of an old school. Okay, on to the next delay. I've gone back to my sort of Vox style amp just to give us a little bit of a cleaner tone. And we're on to shimmer. Now, this is like a big sort of ethereal pad-like delay. So I cranked it up quite a lot and I'm using my volume pedal. Now, also, I think there's some kind of pitch going on with that delay. If I play one note, you can hear a higher register note. It sounds like an octave higher, which kind of adds to the sort of spacey effect. Okay, so following on from delay, now let's take a look at reverb. There's so much to get through. I've got it set to the room reverb. Let's engage that. We have two controls, just the size of the reverb, so the time, and we have a level. Okay, now on to the spring reverb. Crank that up a bit. Yeah, it's got that bloom of a spring reverb. And then finally on to plate. Yeah, there's a lot more of an expanse there, a bigger size with the plate. We just turn that off because obviously there is some ambience on cab rig. Yeah. So you have three different types of reverbs there to help you tailor your tone. Like I said, the reverb, the modulation and the chorus are mono. That is something that I would have liked to have seen as stereo. But again, Blackstar are treating this just as if it is an amp with pedals, a single amp with pedals. So again, as I've already mentioned, I'm using the stereo ambience of cab rig, but, embellishing it with the reverb. I'm not much of a great fan of reverb really, so it's not something that I find myself using. When I was rehearsing with it, I was going between the drive, the modulation and the delay. Something else that I wanted to touch base on really quickly is MIDI. Now, I've used the little connector that comes with amped to, and I've plugged into MIDI in. I've attached the MIDI cable to that going into my air step. Now, I haven't gone into a lot of detail with this. You can probably do a whole video or 2 videos on using MIDI. But what I just tried to do was to do a little bit of channel switching and changing the responses as well. So I've just set 2 channels up. As I'm pushing the button here, you can watch there. There we go. Response 6L6 UK. It's showing the different parameters that I've changed. So I'm going from like a British sound, hit the switch, so I've got it almost set up like a channel switcher. Now, the only downside of that, of course, is that I'm having to use a fixed cabinet. I'm on the open back British. If I put it on the, where are we? On the 4x12. There it is, 4x12. It's changing on my screen. So that's the classic, and now onto the... But, you know, it's a little bit of a compromise there. You can, of course, do a lot more with the MIDI. It's a case of setting up the MIDI control change numbers, the CC numbers and the value of those. So all I did was use the chart. I selected my my first preset, and I went in and I selected it, the control change numbers. I can change up to 8 messages with this board. So I can change 8 different parameters within amped 2 on the push of one switch. So I think I changed the voicing and the responses. That's all. I'm going between the British, the UK voicing and EL84s, and the 6L6 and the classic voicing. So I've got a bit of a sort of retro. Put my board on the floor for a second. Be a little bit better. So I've got, and then. Now, I've basically just set up 2 patches there to show it as if I was changing amps, if you like, or channel switching. You can do every parameter, basically. I can attach expression pedals to my air step, so I could be controlling the modulation speed, the depth. I could be changing the gain. I could be changing the volume. You can even change the position of the effects, whether they're pre or post, or the type of effects loop. You can really go in deep with this, and obviously that would probably be a whole video. But just to keep things nice and simple and just to show you how easy it is, like I said, I've just set it up as if it was channel switching on an amp. So I've gone from the UK with the EL84 to the classic with, I think with the 6L6s. So it is possible to do a whole lot more. But like I said, just wanted to show you exactly how easy it is to set that up. And also to kind of disperse some of the concerns that people have online with it, you know, oh, I'll be stuck using one voice or one response or whatever. No, that is not the case. Maybe you have a Helix or an Axe Effect or something similar to that. You will be able to control all of this via your effects unit. But I kind of like just keeping it a bit simple. I'd potentially use the air step just to change channels if I was doing a more involved gig. But like I said, I took that to a rehearsal and I just used it as it was, and it worked absolutely fine. It performed fantastically. Okay, so just to wrap things up, I've now gone into the other room and I plugged in a cab and a mic. I'm running a Mesa 1x12 angled closed back cabinet. I've got a Lewitt mic, a Lewitt condenser mic in front. I'm now running out of the speaker output. I've got a little box there so I can plug speaker in, and there's a speaker cable the other side. So the cabinet's in the other room. And yeah, I just thought it would be nice for you to hear how it sounds for a guitar cab. So we are no longer using the cab rig slots. We're using the Mesa Boogie 1x12. That sounds great. That sounds really nice. We can kick in a little bit of boost. Let's have a listen to that. Let's have a look at adding a little bit of delay as well. Let's see how that sounds. There's quite a lot of delay there, so let's bring that down. That sounds lovely. Let's just turn off the delay. I'm going to go on to the EL84 and I'm going to go on to the UK voicing. I'm going to drop down to 1 watt. So have a listen to this. I'm hoping this doesn't clip my interface. 1 watt. 20 watts. 100 watt. Yeah, I think that's clipping. I can all of a sudden hear the room coming to life a little bit. So now let's experiment a little bit with the different wattage. And if I drop down to 1 watt, I can start pushing the master up. You start to feel the compression of the response. If I push up some mids. It starts to feel a little bit squishy. If I go on to the 20 watts, let's pull that down. If I go 100 watts, see, it starts to get really... So I've got a lot more clean headroom there to experiment with. So hopefully from this really kind of quick look at each section, it gives you a little bit of an idea of what this fantastic unit is capable of. You know, I think this is just... You know, I will take this on tour with me as a backup setup. I will use this when I'm traveling. I will use this for, you know, gigging around, just going out and doing gigs, because I can just turn up with that little 1/12 and you're done. So just my closing thoughts about Amped 2. I think Blackstar have absolutely knocked it out the park again. I'm a massive fan of Amped 1, and Amped 2 really takes it that step further. I'm not too fussed about all the kind of USB connectivity really for recording and such. That doesn't interest me. For me, it's all about just having a portable solution for gigging, and also for being able to send a nice, good sounding direct signal to the sound man, and also the fact that it's got everything in it so that I don't have to take any additional pedals with me. I can just literally turn up with that. If I'm playing abroad, I can take that. If I'm playing around town, I can take that. And like I said, when I'm on tour, I'll take it as a backup. If everything went wrong, just use that. You know, it's already proved itself when I was in rehearsals earlier on this week. The only things that I think that would be good to see would be cab rig switchable by MIDI, and also maybe the potential of having some of those things like modulation and delay, having those stereo. I don't know whether there's the option to do that as an update, a firmware update, or whether or not, you know, it's kind of part of the hardwiring of the unit. But if there is, you've got stereo ambience within cab rigs, so maybe there could be an update that would address that. But I think being able to switch the cab rig patches, the 3 cab rig patches that we have, being able to switch those by MIDI would be a really good thing. And like I said, it would have been nice to have seen an expression pedal output for controlling the gain and the volume as well, and assigning those to your expression pedal. But other than that, it's a fantastic unit. Thank you for sticking with me. It's a bit of a long video. Hopefully you're going to use the video chapters so you won't become too frustrated. I wanted to show as much as I could. I haven't really probably done it as much justice as it deserves. You could spend so much, you'd probably do a video on each area of this unit, but hopefully the intro track gave you a good idea of what this fantastic unit is capable of. Anyway, that's it from me. I look forward to seeing you very soon. Bye for now.